Hello, back again, part two with public participation. I'm the Lake Station Community Advocate and Educator here. Hopefully you learned something, because right now you're in study hall, and hopefully you come prepared, you got some listening ears, you got pencil and paper, and you are ready to learn. So this will be part two. I went over involvement, and I went over consulting, and now I'm going to go over what's called involvement. Basically, you just work directly with the public, the leadership does in the town, throughout a process that ensures the public concerns and their aspirations or their wants and their needs or what their concerns are that are consistently understood and that they're usually and greatly taken into consideration. Oftentimes, we know that this isn't true, doesn't happen, and unfortunately, it needs to. Now, what happens, and it's most effective and beneficial, that the involving process includes members, and it starts to include members in a little bit deeper mode of, let's say, public officials, school administrators, things like that they're a little bit deeper involved in decision making of what's really going on in our community. Because let's face it, it's our tax money, and we should really be paying attention to who and what's going where. Because if we get more involved, they're held more accountable and things are held more transparency, and there's no reason that finances should be so skewed, thus putting a stop to bad financial decision making by our leadership, which is so great because in this situation and involvement, you're able to identify problems much faster, how they develop and where they started, and how you can stop that. But involvement becomes problematic from the leadership's perspective, and what I mean by that is leaders and organizers, they don't want to provide training, they don't want to provide the education, the encouragement, they don't want that support from public participants because they understand now there's a lot that they have to listen to and they should be taking it into account, and that overbears on their personal wants and needs, selfish needs. Now, and a lot of times their involvement is pretty inauthentic, and it's when they listen to residents, they just want to listen to you. One, they get your vote. Two, they can hush you up and get you away from them. Just very simple things, and we all know this because we've all been to council meetings. We've all seen how things go. We know how board meetings go, schools. We know how these things go at our regular meetings at work. Now, here's the thing. Let's say the city had some policies and it forced the leadership to be involved in the decision-making process. The problem with this is they usually are just going through the motions, like I said, and the purpose very specifically just to be, yeah, we're compliant, this is what we're doing. They overrule most of the time of the local constituents, but yet they want their vote. And a lot of times they disagree with it. Now, what's very problematic about involvement is that the process can be very intentionally and obviously very selective in exclusionary ways on how and who they want to be involved. Well, they'll openly say, well, we have the public involved, when it will really just be a very close-knit people of their like-minded thinkers or their cronies or family members or close friends who have been scared and intimidated to do what their mayor or their leadership tells them to do because they don't want to lose a job. However, it's pretty disingenuous. It's very mismanaged that way. It's very even fraudulent at that point. And again, the public begins to start to distrust those who are in leadership. And they lose faith. They lose faith in the person. They lose faith in the institutions, the organizations, whether or not that they actually know what the hell they're doing. The next is public participation and collaboration. Now, the collaboration process sounds very complicated. It's actually very simple. So you partner with the public in every aspect of decision making, including development and their alternatives. Because if you're building homes and you're jacking taxes up, chances are you may have built 3 homes, but you're running 6 people out of town because now they no longer can pay their taxes. So public collaboration is pretty important. And you're able to identify a lot of the problems very instantly, whereas other times you can't. you try to work to where you collaborate, where you can be able to identify the problems quicker. That's pretty much all it is. But the participants, the residents, the community has an equal status, and that's what the leadership doesn't really like. They don't like equal status to those that they oversee. They don't want them having that ability, and that's faulty. That shouldn't be happening. And to some degree of control, management, decision making over these residents, they just, like I said, they don't like the equal status. However, when leaders begin to use their position, their authority, their influence, and power to exploit or even disempower their residents, things begin to get really bad for that leadership. And when you start to do that, the network that you have built, you may do things to win an election or a vote, but in long-term purposes, you're not really honoring anything as a leader for those residents, and they're going to be like, you know what, we're kind of through with you. We kind of don't want that. So you kind of shoot yourself in the foot in that manner. The next is empowerment. It's just you're placing the final decision making in the hands of the public. Now, we should be very deeply involved, and they'll say, well, you can be involved. Come to a council meeting where you have to sit down, you listen to them, you don't have no voting control or voting power, and basically you have a minute or two to speak, and they just hear you and whatever. Ultimately, they just disregard the residents. In empowerment of public participation, they actually hold the ability to vote and to be able to say, hey, who's getting what and where it's going to go. And a lot of leadership within towns and council boards, they don't like that. But what people don't understand is this empowerment mechanism where you give the public more ability and more power, you actually are entrusting the public is entrusting you more. The downfall to empowerment is when you begin to start to see that your leadership was pretty faulty. They can't even manage things competently or the resources competently. And that's why a lot of times they don't want you to be involved. So those are the 5 things of the 5 elements, the 5 areas of public participation. Do a little critical thinking now. I want you to think, what is public participation? Is it you going down to VFW and paying $10 for a plate of food? Is that participation? Well, sure it is. I'm supporting the community by giving $10. But do you have say-so over where that $10 and how it's being spent? Do you have that ability and that power? Do you have the ability to influence the decision-making in your community outside of the school board or outside of the merit board or outside of the council board? Or do you just have your 2 minutes of fame at a council meeting where they just disregard you, what you say, and then they tell you, well, we'll keep you informed? Public participation, is everybody being involved or is it a select few? Is it everybody of every ethnicity that you have within your community? Or is it just a select few? Are they communicating back to you as to what the outcomes were and how things have been going in the progress? Or are they ignoring you in your phone calls and your emails? Take a little time, chew on all of this, try to digest what I've said in the past 2 videos of public participation, and hopefully you've done a little bit of homework and you can take what I've said into account and see things a little bit differently from what community involvement and what community or public participation is. Yes, you can go to a VFW and you can support, and that's great. But being truly involved, being a participant, means that you have the ability, the power, the authority equal to those that are sitting on those boards and having the final say-so. It gives you more trust throughout the whole process and throughout your leadership. However, oftentimes, they don't want you to be involved. So on your bus ride home, please feel free to check out Lake Station Community Advocate and Educator. I am right here on TikTok. Check out Lake Station Strong Towns Collective on Facebook and Lake Station Strong Local Conversation on Facebook as well. Hey, try to demand some transparency, accountability, and some integrity out of your leadership. Be sure it's for the community, because remember, they serve the community, and we should have a little bit more of a say-so than they're just collecting our taxes and running off with it. Till next time.